Welcome to Be the Good with Kate, the show where guests leave you inspired to uncover your passions and discover tangible ways to make a difference along the way. I'm your host, Kate Chericello-Tente, and here I talk to individuals who are doing just that. Individuals from all walks of life and industries following their passions and making the world a better place while they do. With guests hailing from Bali to Utah, Florida to Japan, and just about everywhere in between, something I love about human connection and inspiration is how you certainly don't need to be from the same place or a similar background to get so much out of hearing from a person. In fact, I think it is better that way. We notice how we as humans are so similar in so many ways, and how each of us has so much power to make a difference in our own lives and the lives of others. I hope you're inspired here to start, restart, or continue your journey of finding your passions and helping others along the way. I love a text saying, "This made me think of you today." If there is someone in your life who could use today's story, click share and send their way. And thank you for helping to inspire more people. Now onto this week's episode. Let's spread a little more goodness in the world. Today, for our season finale of Be the Good with Kate, we have Katrina McGhee, and I knew I wanted her as our finale since before this season rather, even started. Katrina is a career break coach, something that has come up in one way or another in so many episodes of Be the Good with Kate. She is the author of Taking a Career Break for Dummies and co-founder of BreakSpace, the launchpad for life-changing breaks. Katrina helps mid-career professionals design transformative life breaks that lead to happier, healthier, and more fulfilling lives. She developed the Break Blueprint, which I will let her tell you more about. She has been featured in just about every major news publication. And Katrina, thanks so much for talking to me today.
Oh my goodness. I love that intro. And I'm so excited to be here, Kate. I can't wait for this.
Well, first thing I have to just point out for the listeners too, the For Dummies is as in the iconic series For Dummies book, those bright yellow dummy book. I remember back when I was a child and we still went to bookstores, seeing those books there before we even had, email. And I think, it was like email for dummies and things like that. So I can't wait to just hear more about how all of this happened. But first, Katrina, tell us just, in your own words, what is it you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. I am here to set people free. I am basically on a mission to help people break the way that they've been doing work in life and to give themselves a pause, a moment in time to really reflect and recharge and reconsider how they want to live life going forward. And I do that right now through helping people into and through career breaks and sabbaticals. So we use the break as a catalyst to create a different sort of second half of life, if you will, where there's more harmony, alignment, and just fulfillment and health too. A lot more health and well-being in the second half of life.
I'm all about the whole health picture. So that's wonderful you're pointing that out. And Katrina, if someone, you just met someone randomly and you had to give them an exact definition of what a career break is, what would you tell them?
Yeah, it's a period of unemployment. You might come into it intentionally, knowing that you want a break, or you might come into it unintentionally, having been let go or having a health crisis. In the way that I am speaking about a career break, if you choose to own this time off, as in not immediately go back to the job search and be in that transition piece where you don't have a job, but you're actively trying to find your next job, but you're instead taking a pause, we would call that a career break. But you do leave your employer. A sabbatical is adjacent to that, but you are taking an employer provided benefit to take this pause or this break from work, knowing exactly what you're going to go back to. Whereas a career break is sort of a free fall for better or for worse, where you have like infinite possibility, but also a lot more uncertainty.
Oh, that's great. So before we dive into that, let's go way back. How did you find this as your calling, as your career? How did we get here?
I lived this experience and I lived it, in 4K because it was a really vivid experience for me. So I had a first career as an actuary, which was a great career. It paid well out the gate. It delivered on so many of the things I thought I wanted and that a successful person, would have. But it didn't feel aligned with what I wanted for my life or who I was supposed to be. So I went back to get my MBA, switched into a whole second career, and ended up realizing that I didn't want to be part of the corporate rat race anymore. And I had a lot of dreams that took more time than the 10 to 15 or 18 days of PTO we get every year would allow. So I saved $40,000 in 18 months and took a career break back in 2013 to travel the world. And I traveled for 20 months until I basically was broke, came back, was time to find a job, landed 5 job offers in 5 weeks, which planted a seed for me to realize not only was this break good for my own personal well being, but it actually improved my professional standing and my professional opportunities as well. And I knew I wanted to help people figure that out for themselves and go on a similar journey. So after I paid off all my debt, just 2 years later, I became a certified life coach and started helping people and started my own business to basically usher them and guide them into and through life-changing breaks for themselves.
And you just said 2 years it took from those 5 job offers and you turned them all down?
No, I actually accepted a
Okay.
dream job. I went back to work because corporate, right, was how I knew how to make money. And when I
Sure.
really thought about at the end of my break, I'm different. I want all this freedom and I want to like break free of the 9 to 5, but I have this like, like 50 something $1,000 burden hanging over my head. I'm not going to launch a business with this burden. I just know myself and the pressure I would have put on my business to immediately start paying like dividends and to just produce, it would have never worked. And so I realized what I wanted more than anything in the world at that moment in time was financial freedom. And I was going to feel that freedom and access that freedom being debt free. So I went back to corporate to pay off all my debt as fast as I possibly could. And I paid off, 40, it was like $42,000 in 21 months. And then I was like, okay, now I'm debt free. Now the world is my oyster. I can do anything. And that's when I got certified and started a side business as a life coach, helping people take breaks back when I was still working in corporate before I fully transitioned to full time.
And that is something that I love hearing too, that reminder of you can have the vision and the goal. And that doesn't mean that today is the day that everything else goes away and you can only focus on that. Sure, maybe that happens, but a lot of the time it's like what you said, we have to focus on what is I love how you said, right at this time, the thing I wanted most was financial freedom. And
Yeah.
then you knew that you wanted this other goal too. So I just wanted to reiterate that for people as that reminder of we have these goals and we can get there some way. And sometimes it's straightforward. Sometimes it has to be a side job first, but we can get there. And now look at you. Oh my gosh, your accolades go on and on. It's so impressive. Congratulations, but also kudos to you for making it happen. Like, what was it like to switch from it as a side job to it as your full-time job?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So the transition was very thoughtful, right? To take a break, there was a plan to like create the side hustle. I like we talked about, I paid off my loans. But the moment of going from part-time to full-time was actually more spontaneous. There was still a little bit of planning, but I think what happened to me is I paid off, I had paid off all this debt. I had started this business and I was really passionate about it and it gave me joy and excitement. And I was just feeling the grind, the daily grind of having my corporate job. And quite honestly, having a full time corporate job, like where you are client facing, always on, and then having a side hustle, there was no time for me. Right. And I think after maybe like 6 to 8 months, I felt the pressure of that just build. And I was like, I don't even know if my business works. I just know I can only give it a real chance if I set myself free and I'm not living the life I want to live. And so I gave 4 months notice to my employers that I loved very much because it was a small firm and I knew that my absence was going to be a big deal and I wanted them to find a great replacement and leave, without burning any bridges. So I gave them 4 months notice and I actually didn't know how financially I was going to make this leap. I ended up selling the townhouse I had owned that I wasn't planning to sell. That was not on my radar, but just life kind of like happened where it seemed like the moment to do it. And that ended up helping me kind of transition better with less pressure. But I really felt like this burning sense of like, it's now or never, girl. Like, get out there, like make the leap. And so it was kind of a different experience than the other sort of big leaps I had taken. But yeah, that was kind of what led to me going full time. And once I did it, I knew I never wanted to go back. Like I just felt this sense of I never want to be an employee again. And if we're being super transparent, there is this one moment I remember in my last corporate job where I got in trouble for taking PTO and booking a trip to Italy and then booking like this 1 week training that I was going to do for my own personal self in the same month. But one was at the very beginning and one was at the very end, but I booked them both without asking permission first. I had the PTO, like it was still months in advance, but I booked them both and I forgot to ask before I did it. Like I just wasn't thinking and I did it and then I told them and I got in trouble. It showed up in my performance review. Like I wasn't like massively reprimanded, but it was kind of like, don't do this again. By the way, at this point, like you need to ask permission if you want to plan a big vacation. And we'll probably say yes. It's not because we want to say no, but like you have to ask permission so that we can make sure it's okay with our schedule. And I just remember thinking, I'm no longer available to be an employee. Like my employee self that I thought would always be me, right? Like I thought I would only ever be an employee, but it was like in that moment, I was like, I am no longer an employee. So I have to figure out a way to be my own boss because no one's going to tell me when I can take vacation, especially if it's like it's been given to me and I have it and I've earned that benefit. Like no one can tell me when to take it because if you know me, I don't have kids, but I have travel. I love to travel. Other people take time off, to tend to their family, which is totally cool. But like they knew taking me on, like that was my thing. And so it just felt very limiting, right? And so that was kind of like my breaking point where I was like, okay, I am getting out of here. I've got to go like fly the coop and go be like a free bird.
Good for you for doing it too. So many people don't. They just stay and they get more and more miserable, and you did it. And I mean, I'm sure you're hearing a lot of stories now that you're coaching people through these transitions in life. So tell us more about that kind of day to day and just working with clients now.
Yeah. So there's two main ways I do it now, which is they're both fulfilling in different ways. I have been doing one-on-one coaching since I started in 2017, so that's 7 years. And I freaking love that because you see the change up close and personal. Like you're in the passenger seat, they're driving, and you just get to really be on the journey and see it in real time and kind of see the pain points and the struggle and the breakthroughs, which is just so fulfilling. And I to date have supported over 100 clients who've taken breaks. So I've seen like 100 breaks up close, right? But that's not scalable in the same way. And so my new sort of venture this year, which has been the most amazing journey, I partnered with the technical editor of my book, who is a sabbatical coach and has been for over 5 years. Her name is Linda Farley. We joined forces and we created this separate entity called BreakSpace, which is a membership and community where we help people take breaks, both with two amazing coaches that do drop in coaching, but we have community calls and resources and courses and things like that. And it's really exciting to be able to think about helping people and to actively help people on a bigger scale take more breaks, because that's what we're both here to do, right? It's to spread the word and really support this movement towards people rethinking their lives and incorporating space and time and focusing on their well-being in a more sustainable way, because the way we're working and living is not sustainable. I think everybody knows that.
Yes, yes. And do you see people from all industries, or is there an industry that tends to be the majority?
Yeah, all industries. I definitely notice nonprofit and
Mm,
healthcare are two sectors that have a lot of people that come into a break from a place of like real, sort of like really heavy burnout, right?
yeah.
So there's a lot of guilt attached to people in healthcare and nonprofit, I think, because they're usually of a service mindset and they know that the work they do is impacting lives on the daily versus like, maybe something more corporate where it's like it impacts you and sort of it impacts the customer, but there's maybe some disconnect between that. But I think the people in the nonprofit industry and in healthcare, they feel that pressure of like, am I even allowed to take time for myself? Like what I
Mm.
do is so important and so like life-giving to other people. Am I allowed to take a break for me, especially if I'm not broken, right? Like, am I allowed to take it just because I'm exhausted? Is that a good enough reason? But I support people all over, all different industries. And I think corporate is a space where people have sort of numbed out. So maybe a lot of times they are at a point of exhaustion, but a lot of times there's also like this emotional exhaustion where there's like a numbness and this sense of misalignment and like this feeling of grinding it out and not really feeling like their return is there, but they just think this is what I have to do and I'm going to do this until retirement. And so I see that, in marketing and operations and people in tech, like you see it all across the board. I've supported people in education. It's just there's definitely a wide variety of people that want, need, and would like to take a break.
There's another episode this season. Angela, she runs a travel agency that's very specific to women, just looking for that purpose-driven travel. And she was on that hamster wheel of corporate. And she said that she found herself living for her vacations or working for her vacations. She worded it better than I'm doing it now. But, and so as I'm hearing you talk, like, yes, I hear it over and over again. And friends in corporate too, it's that they just get on that wheel and keep going because that is what seems to be expected. And do you find too, I mean, I know when I was in college and whatnot, it feels like you were applauded if you stayed up late because you were working extra hard, and, or in the workforce, you stayed late at the office or got in early. And that's applauded as opposed to just the getting the work done if you happen to sleep a great night. Like no one talks about that, it seems.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Kate, you are speaking the truth over
Yeah.
there. I mean, what is celebrated, right, is self-sacrifice. Do
Yeah.
you care? Are you so dedicated? Are you a hard worker? Do you get out there and do you bleed for the mission? Do you bleed for the, you know what I mean? And it's like at some point, I think collectively we're asking ourselves, I don't have any blood left for me. Like
Mm.
this hasn't left me feeling good, but I do think that that wiring and that programming that we've gotten from a very, young age, it's like get your A, work hard for it. Don't really ask why. Just do it because that's the metric of success. Then that translates right into going to college and like staying up and getting the paper and doing the thing and like, taking all the classes and having a heavy load. And then that becomes right being at the job, getting promoted first, getting the best review. And it's like all these metrics are so external. They're so about how am I perceived? How am I performing relative to the people around me that have completely different desires, completely different circumstances, like, and completely different, trajectory, skills, strengths, you name it, versus how do I feel about the life I'm living? What is my internal metric or metrics? Like, what is it that I am feeling and needing? Am I taking care of myself? Am I investing in the things that matter to me? We are not primed nor sort of taught to view life that way. And I think in today's world where so much is demanded of us 24/7, it is so depleting that it leaves a lot of us feeling broken at the end of it, right? Extremely burnt out, sort of like numb to what like life is, not really finding the joy. Or to your point with Angela, right? Which I think a lot of people can relate to. I'm going to create these little tiny pockets for me. I'm going to get like 10 days out of a whole
Mm.
year where I can just breathe and be happy. And it's like when you zoom out on a lifetime of that, that feels like a waste of a life.
I will never forget. I taught Pilates in corporate for many, many years in Manhattan, and I still teach it, but not in the corporations anymore. But a 20-something-year-old investment banker would take my class. A bunch of them did every Tuesday night. And I realized after a while, it was their time that they could escape their desk because they would go right back up and stay there till 3 in the morning. And one of them was finally going on vacation. And I said, "Oh, where are you going?" And he told me, I think it was Peru. And I was like, "Oh, why Peru?" He said, "Because I looked at the Verizon coverage map and that was the spot that they couldn't reach me." And I've never forgotten. I mean, that was probably 10 years ago now. Never forgotten it because, like, oof, this is where they are at. And, you made me think of a question. Have you ever found someone, because I feel like I don't want anyone to think, "Oh, well, I have a corporate job. Should I get out of it?" Like, some people really love what they're doing in the corporate, medical, all of these things that tend to
Yeah.
have more burnout. Have you ever found someone you've worked with who ends up going back into a job that might seem similar, but just with a newfound, I don't know what the word is, I guess, way?
Yeah. Oh, I love that you asked this question. Absolutely. Absolutely. Many times. So it's an inside job, right? The break is this amazing space and time to focus on yourself, to get right with your well being, to explore, reflect, really get your life together in a way where you are orienting it to you being the sun versus like your career or other people's expectations. When you're doing the inside work, you change. And so the good news is that if you're thoughtful about how you design a break and you are thoughtful about how you navigate both the joy and the discomfort of being on a break, and you're thoughtful about reflecting on who you are at the end of that experience, you can return as a new version of yourself. I have a client, as an example, who was a nurse. And he had like a long career as a nurse, completely burnt out, was like, I don't even know what I'm going to go into when this break is over, but like I cannot go back to like nursing. It's just too much. It's just too much. And he took a career break, and at the end of his break, which I think was about 5 months, he was like, I think I'm ready to go back into nursing. And he did, right? And that job, his patients were in love with him. Like they just felt so seen by him and they felt like he was this bright light coming into the room to be of service to them. And that was an energy and a light that he had lost and he couldn't bring without the break. But once we cleared away all the stuff, it's like, oh my God, I was just exhausted and I was living in a way where I was part of the problem. Like my environment wasn't helping, but like the way I felt like I always had to be pushing, pushing, pushing. I always had to be thinking efficiently. I always had to be productive. Like that programming was like hardwiring me to burn out. And through my break, I realized I am part of the problem. Like he talks
Mm.
about this very pivotal moment where he realized he was rushing his daughter through like during his break through the activity. So he was like, like I think dinner was like the example and he was like, let's hurry up and get it done. And he was like, why am I hurrying her through dinner? Like all we're gonna do at the end of dinner is read a story. Like no one's like waiting for us at the end of this evening, but it's like the wiring of like, okay, how can we get this done faster? How can we move on to the next thing? And he even noticed that when he did the stairs, he would take the stairs two at a time so that he could get wherever he was going faster. And on his break, right? There's no work. There's no, there's a lot of time and space. And it's like, why am I still doing this? So his sort of, moment was realizing in the ways he was showing up. And once he released that, he was able to go back to nursing with a light. I had another client who was in corporate and she thought, man, I really don't think I want to go back to corporate, but I have no idea what I want to do. On her break, she traveled a lot. She started a blog, which is a really beautiful blog, reflections on life and lessons she's learned, and talking about her career break in her mid 40s and sort of this midlife break. But ultimately, she realized I miss the stability of corporate income and, what that provides. And in the season of my life, I think that's actually what I kind of want. Also, I'm just more clear on how I've blossomed and changed. But like, I think that change is enough for now. And so she went back to corporate and had a completely different experience. She was actually chosen to lead the women's network of her whole entire like this global company, like of their chapter in her city. She became like the president, the leader of the women's network in her first year there at this new company because she was a light too. She was very radiant and no longer hiding parts of herself and feeling she had to compartmentalize so much of herself to fit in corporate. Of course, that's draining. That was her old way. So, of course, that was never going to be rewarding. But through the break, I think she shed enough layers and really stepped into feeling empowered and feeling like her true authentic self and feeling restored that she could go back to corporate, find a job that like really allowed her to be herself, but also take the skills she already had, get her steady paycheck and sort of rebuild her life from that point. And, like that was a much better experience. So I do see that a lot where people do the inside work and then suddenly like the circumstances don't matter as much.
I'm so glad you shared that because that was such a great reminder. I've said that sentence a lot today. I feel like you just keep giving us a lot of great reminders of it doesn't necessarily mean, a career break of leaving everything and changing everything. Sometimes it is just we need to step away and reset and learn and grow. So awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And what advice would you give to someone who feels like maybe this is something they need to look into, but they just feel completely overwhelmed of what the next step would be?
Yeah. Okay. Number one, don't be overwhelmed. It's okay. Number one, I've got good news. Career breaks are on the rise. Sabbaticals are on the rise. More companies are offering sabbaticals. LinkedIn has a career break feature. More people are using it. People are talking about it. Fortune, Business Insider, Forbes, like everyone is writing about it. So just know you are in a growing sort of what will be, I predict, a very silent majority, not that too far in the future. So, number one, you're not crazy. You're not alone. There are a lot of you out there. Number two, the only thing you have to do when you're thinking, I really would like to take a break, but I have no idea what to do next, is stop and think about what would be a purpose of my break. If you can take that one step, you can get so much information from like really understanding the purpose. Number one, it will tell you like how immediate is this break? If you're like, my body is crashing and my mind is like not hanging tough here, I really feel like I'm about to snap. That tells you maybe my timeline needs to be pushed up. If you know that your break has a dream embedded in it like my break did and you want to travel the world, that gives you something to create an estimate, right? So you can start to think about how much might a break like this cost and also a timeline, right? So it's probably not going to be 2 months if you want to travel the world. So just understanding what the purpose is and what would be the most amazing thing you could get out of this experience, why you would want to take this break, can help inform things like how much is it going to cost, even if it's a rough estimate? what the timeline is, how long the break might be, and really the kinds of activities you would want to do if you were on a break. Like you can get so much from just really thinking about that one thing. But the next step is start surrounding yourself with things that are possible. I mean, I have a plethora of resources. There are lots of other resources out there, but the book Taking a Career Break for Dummies is a really great start. It starts with, if you're considering a break, how do you decide if a break is right for you, and goes all the way through, how do you come back from a break and land job offers and retain the benefits of your break? So, like, literally from A to Z, right? There are podcasts out there that talk about this. People have shared their stories. So just start immersing yourself in the possibility and put yourself in spaces where people have done this or are doing this, and you can start to build that muscle of like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is possible. I'm not alone. I'm not crazy for wanting to do this. But I would recommend just starting even with what the purpose is and really understanding, why would I want a break? Is a break right for me? What would this really be about if I could take time off?
Fantastic advice, Katrina. And I just have to ask you then one more question because I'm so curious. How on earth did you end up writing Take a Career Break for Dummies?
Ah, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a fun one. So I had no intention of ever writing a book because writing, I'm good at it, but it's hard. It's very hard for me. It always has been. They found me. I got a random email one day that I thought was a scam or spam delivered to my inbox that was like, would you like to collaborate on taking a career break for dummies? And I was like, this is so not real. Like, these people do not solicit people through email, like, to write a book like this. Come on. And it turns out it was real. I Googled her name before I deleted it. I Googled her name and I was like, oh, she's a real person who works for a real company that really is the publisher for this series. Because I didn't even know that Wiley was the publisher for the series. And then we had a conversation and I was like, holy crap, talk about imposter syndrome, right? Like, how am I going to write a for dummies book? Like, I went to the bookstore after I got her email and looked at the dummies books to get reacquainted with them. And they're so intense. They're reference books. They have so much information. I was like, oh my God, I don't even think I have enough things to say. But I recognized it felt like the universe gave me a chance to do what I said I wanted to do, which was to help a lot of freaking people take a break. And the universe was like, I've got a pathway for you to do that. Are you going to rise to this occasion? And it just felt like I have to put my money where my mouth is. I have to show up and like walk my talk. Otherwise, what am I even really doing here? And so I said yes. I cried a lot. I struggled a lot in the beginning to like master the format, the template, the tone of voice, but I found my way. And at the end of it all, it felt like the most amazing accomplishment. I'm so proud of how it turned out, but I'm proud of myself for just showing up for that opportunity. And it's been a really amazing experience. And it was actually like really cool to write with a publisher that has a very formulaic approach because it really gave me a lot of guardrails to keep me moving through the process. I wrote that book in 364 days. So from the day I got the email to the day it was on the shelf in Barnes and Noble was one day short of a year. And normally books take like 2.5 years from a book proposal to get out. So it was really intense, but I did it. And I think the book is great.
That is so cool. Like, what a neat story and just unexpected.
Yeah, for sure. Very unexpected. Yes.
Amazing. Oh, Katrina, this has been so delightful. Please tell everybody where they can find you online.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I love to hang out there and share a lot of what I know. So, Katrina McGhee, when you're going to LinkedIn, but also if you're interested in finding community and you want to hang out with me in an ongoing way, you should definitely go to www.gobreakspace.com where our new community is. It's really exciting. We have over 30 members in our first launch. We're going to launch again soon. And it's just really exciting. It's a special place. So you can find me there. And I just love hearing from people. So hit me up on LinkedIn or just come join me in BreakSpace.
Oh, wonderful. Katrina, thank you so much. There's been so much tangible advice and great stories and just that reminder again that it's possible. And I love that you kept focusing in on finding that purpose and asking yourself that. So thank you and just keep up the amazing work.
Thanks, Kate. It's so great being here.
Thanks for tuning in. If you found this helpful, a 5-star review, like, or comment means the world to me. And if you found insight in this episode, chances are someone else will too. Share with a friend to give them a boost today. Until next time, I'm Kate Chiaratello-Tente, and this was Be the Good with Kate.